Video today. We're doing 2 NFL player props here on PrizePicks for Monday night, 31 cents per day. It's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. Super positive community in there. Everyone just trying to help each other cash. I also want to mention I'm not a gambling expert. It's not financial advice. Simply just plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully giving you guys some insight and analysis to make your own player prop decisions here. Again, no one's pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. But let's get right into it, you guys. Also, before I really get into the 2 plays, I want to talk about Daily Grind Fantasy. DFS Optimizer, obviously there's a bunch of tools that to use on Daily Grind. DFS Optimizer, Middling, Fantasy Scores, the AI slip generator, does all the hard work for you. If you don't know about Daily Grind yet, basically takes all the lines from all the major sports books and gives you 1% odds for this line to hit either the under or the over. Again, any pretty much any play that's on the PrizePicks board that is like on another sports book will be up on Daily Grind Fantasy, right? DG Fantasy. If you're on underdog, parlay play, better picks, dabble, rebet, sleeper as well. All these player props, every single sport, right? Like the number 1 play on the board right now is the CS2 esports map 1 headshots under 5, 56.32 odds to hit. It does a great job overall, but there's a link in the description. You get promo code TUFF, 25% off your first month at Daily Grind Fantasy. But nonetheless, let's get into it. 2 player props, both fantasy scores here for Chiefs Saints. Let's get into it. The first play I'm looking at here is going to be Derek Carr over 13.5 fantasy score. I think for any quarterback, like any quarterback in the league, all right, this is considered a low line, right? Like there's obviously some quarterbacks I think were like Jacoby Brissett or I'm trying to think of another quarterback, maybe like Bryce Young, who are around this range, right? Like 10.5. I mean, you're not going to see a quarterback honestly lower than 10.5, but I mean, Derek Carr has 2 games this season already over 20 plus fantasy points, right, against Carolina and Dallas. He's had 2 tough weeks back to back, some weird weeks overall, and I think this is a nice bounce back spot for him where the Saints are actually 5-point underdogs here, and I definitely think this line, Kansas City being 5-point favorites at home is going to hold true because of some injuries that the Saints do have defensively. And just I think overall, I think the Saints play at home. They tend to, dominate on offense, play really well on offense usually. So again, I think the Saints, Derek Carr, are going to be trailing the majority of this game. So obviously that helps quarterbacks in throwing the ball. But we look at Derek Carr, and like I said, he's had 2 really good games this season and then 2 kind of tough games. He's yet to throw for 240 passing yards, or 250 passing yards, sorry. He has 1 rushing touchdown. Again, overall, we take a look at Derek Carr in this spot against the Chiefs on the road. He's proven, right, I would say, we look at this matchup right off the bat. The Chiefs, they are, allowing 20 points per game, fantasy points per game. They're right in the middle of the pack. So this isn't like some super stout elite defense. I think they're a good defense, like in real life. As far as like being able to win a Super Bowl, I think they're an elite defense. But for fantasy purposes, we've seen them give up some decent games to quarterbacks this season. I think I just lost it. Hold on. Well, real quick, before I get into that, I lost my tab. But Derek Carr, if you can see, he obviously played for the Raiders for a majority of his career. He's over this line in 4 of his last 5 games versus Kansas City. 4 of his last 5, and he's over actually in 2 of his last 3 on the road at Kansas City. He's had some pretty massive games, right, in his career versus Kansas City. But if we kind of look here as well at quarterbacks, let's see, players. I'm just doing this in one take. I appreciate the patience. Fantasy score game log this season versus Chiefs. Right, we can see. I know Joe Burrow had 17.2, Lamar Jackson had 25.1, Cousins 12.1, and Herbert 11.2. In both these games, Cousins and Herbert, obviously some super weird games going on there. In my opinion, I think Herbert, he's like been injured. He's not throwing the ball a ton. 27 pass attempts, 179. We know that they're kind of a run first team, so I don't really attribute too much to this here. And then Kirk Cousins, let me actually take a look at this game. I'm not really sure what happened here. 22-17. This was Monday Night Football, I believe. And I think this was Monday Night Football a few weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago. I just want to see how this game kind of broke down. Yeah, super weird game. Bijan Robinson had 16 carries for only 31 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. Super weird game. Kyle Pitts, 2 catches for 59 yards. Nonetheless, I think Derek Carr has a better offensive coordinator, I think, than the Falcons do. And I think they've had 2 weeks now since their starting center has gotten hurt and kind of having to readjust how they're going to go about, moving this offense along. Some key things here, though, as well. The Saints are missing. So the Saints' number one linebacker who plays the most snaps is Pete Werner, and they actually just ruled him as out. Right? They downgraded linebacker Pete Werner is out in the Monday Night Football's game against the Chiefs, which I think is just going to help the Chiefs move the ball on offense a lot easier. Which again I think will increase Derek Carr's opportunities to throw the ball here. I think he's going to have to be throwing the ball a ton. He's obviously got the weapons: Kamara, Olave, Rashid. He's got weapons to easily clear this line. If we talk about just kind of like what a baseline fantasy score, like what a baseline line would be for him to clear this line, we look at last season. I think he was over in I don't know. Let's see. He's over in probably like 7 of 12 games, 7 of 16 games, 15 games last season. But if we go here to, let's go to Outlier real quick, outlier.bet, just to show something here as well. Again, there's a link in the description. You can get a 7-day free trial with Outlier. It's again just comparing all the lines on sports books. But we take a look at Derek Carr here, and I wanted to look at something because I think this is key, right? I think the game environment for Derek Carr really is important when we talk about just his overall upside as a fantasy points per minute player, or fantasy points per play player. So last 10 games, he's over in 6 of his last 10. But in games, right, the game total here is 43.5, and I think it could easily exceed that. But in games when there is a game total at 44, he's over in 6 of 9 games over his last 10. This is going back to last season, and he averages 17.82 fantasy points in that span. So I think it's a great spot for Derek Carr. I think any quarterback, like I said, at a 13.5 is super low. He's 5 points lower than Patrick Mahomes, and Derek Carr obviously should be trailing in this one. So Derek Carr for 13.5 fantasy is the first play. And again, second play is going to be Kareem Hunt. I think this goes hand in hand with the injury to Pete Werner. He's obviously the linebacker that's going out in coverage to tackle those running backs on checkdowns, or usually when the running backs are running routes. But just last week, Kareem Hunt's first game of the year. Did not even start this game. He really didn't start getting serious snaps more towards the end of the end of the second quarter. He played 25 snaps total and had 10.5 PPR fantasy points. Right? On only 25 snaps. I can see him playing north of 32, 33 plus snaps tonight. He ran 11 routes, 3 targets, 2 catches for 16 yards, 14 carries, 69 yards. And again, he's playing back at home in Arrowhead. For the first time since 2018, when he was obviously a monster of a player, going back to his years previously when he was with the Chiefs. But we look at the Saints here, allowing 14.8 PPR fantasy points to the running back position. We look at the Chargers, who are actually slightly better defense versus them, 14.2 PPR fantasy points versus the running back position, and that's exactly who Kareem Hunt just had 10.5 in his first game. Right, limited practice reps and things like that. He's now had a longer week. Multiple more practices in that offense, and I think they've already kind of announced that he's going to be the starting running back tonight in this game, right? So that presents a great opportunity for Kareem Hunt. Obviously, PPR, if he can catch 2-3 balls for 16 yards, right here, that's 3.6 fantasy points. And I think there is touchdown upside for him tonight here as well. And it goes hand in hand with the spread being 5. I think the Chiefs will run the ball a ton in the second half, without question. But we look at running backs PPR game log this season. The last 3 running backs that actually get touches have had at least 10 PPR fantasy points. Tyler Algier, he had 10 PPR fantasy points on 8 carries. He also caught 2 catches for 20 yards. Bijan Robinson in the same game. So both running backs for the Falcons had over on this line, 11.4 for Bijan, 7 carries. He actually only had 7 carries, 28 yards. 4 catches for 46, and then we saw what Saquon Barkley was able to do versus the Saints as well. 17 carries, 147 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, also caught 4 catches for 9 yards. He had 33.6 PPR fantasy points. And then even Dowdle here, 9.9. Like, a game of 7 carries for 30 yards and 4 catches for 29 yards. If he has touchdown upside as well, I think this is a super low line. Again, like I said, Pete Werner, the linebacker for the Saints, being out, I think is going to play a major role here in Kareem Hunt's success. And then we just look at last season. Last week, Kareem Hunt played the most snaps out of the running back room. Really, his first week, every other running back, Pirine and Carson Steele, had 3 previous weeks, to get acclimated to the offense. And in Kareem Hunt's first week, he led the team in snaps. Pacheco's out. I think Carson Steele is pretty much going to be phased out of this offense as a whole with 2 fumbles. And then we just look at Kareem Hunt as well, right? Something I think is very interesting here. Over 1.5 receptions, he's minus 225, minus 400 on Caesars, right? I mean, the Saints are ranked, I think this is 6th or 8th to the running back position in receptions allowed. So heavily juiced, right? Minus 400 on Caesars to catch 2 footballs out the backfield tonight. With the Chiefs, when he logs 2+ catches at home, you can see his lowest fantasy score game. Mind you, this is back 5-6 years ago, right? But just kind of the floor for Kareem Hunt here when he catches at least 2 passes. When he was with the Chiefs, he averaged like 3.8 targets per game and 36 receiving yards per game. Like, he's a dual threat, catch the ball in the backfield type of running back. And you can see these PPR score fantasy lines in games where he caught 2 catches. Like, he's had monster games with the Chiefs at home. Monster games. Even just right here, 11.6 fantasy, for example. If he catches 2 balls for 25 yards and has 16 carries for 71 yards, no touchdown, he finishes with 11.6. All we need is 10.1 here in this matchup tonight versus the Saints. So here are the 2 plays for this Monday Night Football matchup here. Carr fantasy, Hunt fantasy. Again, check out Daily Fantasy as well. Link in the description. You guys, again, top play on the board right now on Daily is Chris Olave, Xavier Worthy over combo touchdown. 53.92 odds to hit because it's on I think hot streak at minus 117. Again, bunch of lines on the board right now currently. Daily Grand Fantasy, link in the description below. Please drop a like, hit that subscribe button. As always, let's cash.